Hey, it's Spoonie, and it's time for the April update on the progress of Kitten Space Agency. If this is your first time hearing about Kitten Space Agency, it's a game that's meant to be the spiritual successor to Kerbal Space Program after the disastrous launch of Kerbal Space Program 2, and if you somehow don't know by now, Kerbal Space Program 2 has been all but scrapped, as the studio that was developing the game has been shut down and the IP sold off along with other games under the private division label to a private equity firm called Haveli Investments. There are some rumors about a new team being put together by ex-Annapurna developers to work on some of the titles under the private division basket of games. But that doesn't mean that it will be Kerbal Space Program 2, and even if it was,
frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
So now that we are over half a year into development since the game was first announced back in November, I'm going to do away with the recaps for the previous month's updates. They are just going to start taking too long to go through, but if you want to follow along with the monthly updates, you can check out my Kitten Space Agency playlist that will include all of the previous updates over the last few months and bring you up to speed. Instead of recaps, what I'm going to do is just briefly go over some of what we know about Kitten Space Agency so far, and I'll update it each month as we go. So if you're new, here are a few bullet points about the game so that you can more easily follow along with the updates in the future. First, this game is meant to be the spiritual successor to Kerbal Space Program 2. It is being built from the ground up on a custom framework called Brutal, designed specifically for this game. Brutal gives the developers full control over just about everything and allows them to quickly experiment with new features and ideas, like shadows from moons on planets, which went from conception to proof of concept implementation in just 3 hours. Yes, there will be mod support. In fact, this game is being developed with mod support as a cornerstone, and everything in the game is essentially a mod itself which can be altered. The game will have multiplayer, and the groundwork for this feature is being baked into the game so that it can be more easily added when the time comes. We don't know if it will launch with this feature, but we do know that they are planning for it. The game will have interstellar travel. The game will also be DRM free, meaning you will not have to have an internet connection to play the game. The game will also, at least ideally, be free to play. This is still a little bit up in the air as the developers will obviously need to make money from the game. It may be through a pay what you want system or other voluntary support. We will have to wait for further clarification down the road, but we do know that Dean Hall very much wants this game to be released for free. While we don't have a lot of information on system requirements just yet, the game seems to already be incredibly performant, with at least some of the work being tested on a 2080 Super at 1440p, often achieving an FPS in the hundreds. This is a good sign that you probably won't need a 5090 to play this game at the higher settings with a decent frame rate. This performance boost is in part thanks to a system of rendering called spherical billboards, which swaps out pre-rendered meshes as you approach an orbital body rather than rendering them in real time. You will be able to seamlessly switch from ship view to orbital view or to another ship around another body without the need for loading screens, thanks to the utilization of instantiable physics and the Brutal framework, which allows everything to play by its own set of rules rather than everything being tied together in a persistent scene. This also gives the modders a straightforward path to adding, editing, or completely remaking systems. And those are the key points which I hope will answer a lot of the questions those who are new to the game might have. Again, I'll add to this as the weeks go on, but there will also be chapters for those of you who have heard all of this and want to skip ahead to the new updates. And speaking of answers to questions, we got a ton of answers during the town hall on March 27th. It was hosted by the developers of the game, and if you want to listen to that, I have the full audio linked at the bottom of the description below. But if you're just looking for the highlights to the most asked questions, like will they be using a custom solar system rather than the real solar system, or will it release on Steam, I'm going to be going over all of those questions towards the end of this video. So with that, let's just jump right into what's new over the last month. First, we got a closer look at the nav ball and some of the added helper buttons. Keep in mind that a lot of what you're seeing still are placeholders. Maybe. I personally kind of like the straightforward UI, so as things get cleaned up, I hope that they tend towards sticking with this blunt aesthetic. We can also see here that we're going to be given a lot of quick access to information that we had to kind of dig for in Kerbal Space Program, and in some cases we had to add mods to access it. So already we are seeing a lot of tools that will help us fine-tune orbits and more easily plan maneuvers compared to KSP. And I think that's going to help the game be both more immersive and help those who are new at the game more quickly overcome the often steep learning curves. Getting your first craft into orbit in Kerbal Space Program always felt like such a huge achievement, and I think that's an experience that will only be enhanced by having more access to more detailed information about your craft. But honestly, who am I kidding? I'm probably still just gonna add more boosters and then quick load over and over until I trial and error my way onto the moon, as is tradition. Next, we got another update on some of BlackRock's work, which never fails to impress, and this time we can see some added cloud noise animations which look incredible and just continue to add to the realism. Just great work all around here. We also got to see the next step in the evolution of the celestial shadows that got introduced last month. Previously, they just appeared as flat shadows on the planet's surface. Now, those shadows are volumetric on the atmosphere, and this image in particular is absolutely stunning. Finally, from BlackRock, we got to see some initial work on the volumetric exhaust plumes, which appear to be extremely performant as well. Towards the end of the video, we can see that the number of exhaust is being increased over time from a few hundred with an FPS between 3 and 600 to later having over 2,000 plumes on screen at the same time with an FPS still sitting around 200. For now, a lot of what you're seeing here, including the shape color and mock diamonds, are all placeholders, but I still think they look great already, and can't wait to see what these look like when they're a little further along. Dean Hall, the CEO of RocketWerkz, also posted some images of the new terrain shadow system that has been implemented, showing off what a massive difference shadows can make. The terrain already looked great, but I think the biggest differences here can be seen on Mars due to the greatest degree of contrast. And just when it seemed like it couldn't get much better visually for the month, BlackRock posted images of the initial God Ray implementation using the new terrain shadows. So we are starting to get a much better idea of just how stunning this game might end up being when it's done. I mean, who needs visual mods when vanilla looks this good? Honestly, this might end up being the most screenshotted game of all time if things keep trending this way. Each month is visually better than the last, and now that we are getting some gameplay added in, I'm officially fully on board the hype train. As far as the developer updates on Discord go, that's it for this month, but there are still plenty of things to cover from the last month thanks to the town hall that gave us a ton of answers to some of the most asked questions so far. I'm going to cover the top questions that I have been asked in my own comments section, but if you want to listen to the entire town hall, which is around 90 minutes long, I will add the link to the full audio at the bottom of this video description as well as at the end of this video. So let's get into it. I will be paraphrasing a lot of this just for the sake of brevity, but I am going to splice in direct answers as much as I can to make sure that you hear it straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. So firstly, covering the operating system the game will be compatible with, the question is whether or not this game will have Mac OS support, but this also to some degree is going to cover Linux, even if it's indirectly. The quick answer here is a maybe. It will fully depend on how well the game does financially, because other builds take time and by extension money to complete, but it is possible and absolutely not out of the question.
Someone asked, will it be Mac OS support? And if so, what would be the spec requirement? So our Brutal team, some of the team members actually use Macs, so by default we have to support Mac, so the game has to be able to run in Mac so that they can continue to do their dev work. That doesn't mean to say though that we'd ship a Mac build. What we've tended to find is that supporting other builds increases our build time and all stuff like that. And then when we put out a build for that, we need to make sure that it works for it. It's other platforms is definitely something we can do. It's really more a question of how well a game does revenue wise, how whether we can support different platforms, because they're usually percentage points on, say, PC, at least for us. So that means that yeah, it really comes down to how well it does. So with our game stationaries, same thing. It's like a lot of people are like, oh, it'd be great if you did Linux or Mac, but it's really a question of how much it sells.
The next question is whether the solar system will be the real solar system or a fictional one. And this is probably the most common thing that I have seen in the comments for the last couple videos on KSA. I personally have held the belief that with the amount of work that has gone into creating an incredible and fleshed out real solar system, that it will be used at least to some degree, whether as an alternate system or a starting system or as an interstellar destination. What seems to be the case is that this system will at the very least be used for the early builds of the game, and later on they will likely be hiring members from the community to create, replace, or add to this system. But that's enough paraphrasing. Let's see what the developers said.
Will the in-game solar system be our solar system with Earth, Mars, etc.? Would there be a fictional system like Kerbal? So one of the things we really want to do, or at least I really want to do, is try and involve experts from the community. So, I mean, there's a few people joining the dev team already, super skilled from the community. My current suggestion to the dev team is that later on, once we've got the alpha build available and we see if we can fund the game just on contributions, then we could actually go to the community and put out a proposal, same with a bunch of different things, and say, design us a solar system that's Earth-like, but because if you, I'm sure I don't need to tell anybody in the KSP community, the quality of some of the planet and system mods is just incredible. I mean, the quality of a number of the mods is just insanely good. So that's the current plan. One of the reasons that we use the solar system is just because there's a lot of ready access data, and I really wanted to make sure that mods like RSS would be supported. Although they will require pretty grunty PCs to run because you need a lot of textures to represent solar system objects properly. So yeah, we will go out and we'll get a team to make really high quality solar system for us. And my suspicion is that the best people to do that will be hiring members of the community to do it.
The next question is something that has been brought up a lot since the first time I posted a KSA video, and that is n-body physics, with n representing the number of bodies that have a force acting upon an object. For instance, something in orbit around Earth also has the sun's gravity acting upon it, not just Earth's. This becomes even more complicated as the number of bodies gravitationally affecting an object increases. Because of this, the developers feel that the majority of players would largely consider this an annoyance rather than a fun addition to the game. So I think this is something the modding community will have to tackle for those who want the additional challenge, but they didn't blanketly say no.
If it switches between Rails and Newtonian physics, does that mean there will not be in-body simulation? So we were talking with someone very knowledgeable in this, and Stefan, you were saying it still remains possible that we could do that if we wanted, correct?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it's not a no. It's just not where we're pushing towards at the moment. And yeah, but there's nothing necessarily in the way of it. That might come down to, again, how much we raise through contributions and who we can assign to it and stuff like that. And you also said that even if we didn't do n-body, I mean, obviously that leaves room for modders too, but there is a possible sort of half solutions for us to do.
We could do three bodies or something like that.
I think the n-body is widely like, it's a term that is widely just thrown around in the KSP community to mean like Lagrange points, which are really the interesting bit you get out of n-body integration.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean the rest of it, like in actual gameplay terms, is from experience noise. Like you're flying an interplanetary flight and everything is going according to plan, and you just see that your orbit is randomly drifting. Like if you don't know exactly which gravity influences are pulling you in which way, it just feels like it's just a bit annoying in terms of gameplay because you just
I was about to say exactly what you exactly what Felipe's saying. He just stole it. I was about to say be careful what you ask for. So n-body, you have to think of it from a like the 80% of players perspective. It's like it will just be an annoying feature to a lot of players.
Stefan, do you want to stream while we're talking so people have to look at?
I think what people are asking for is Lagrange points, just like you said, Felipe, and that we don't have to implement full n-body physics to have them.
Next is, what will the game cost and will it be DRM free? This one is very straightforward. Yes, it will be DRM free, and it will ideally be funded solely through contributions and thus be free for anyone to download and play. So for those who can afford to support the project upon release, if you play it and you enjoy it, I would encourage you to contribute what you think is a fair price, an amount that you can obviously change over time. If the initial alpha build is worth $5 to you, great. If the finished product later is fun and you have sunk tens, hundreds, or even thousands of hours into this game, maybe it's worth another contribution commensurate with the value it has provided you in terms of education and entertainment. Which leads into the next question of how can we support this title? Right now, the best way to support this game is to just tell your friends about it. Send them a link to this video or any other content creator's videos who is covering this game. It doesn't have to be one of my videos specifically. Shadowzone, for example, also covers this game and has some great content. So yeah, just tell your friends about it. You can also buy the developer's other games like Icarus or Stationeers, which are both great games and they go on sale fairly often. As far as a direct contribution for this game specifically, the studio has said that it will not be taking money prior to the public build being available for free. They have made this decision due to what they see as an eroded trust in early access and community-focused developments. Again, the studio hopes to release this game for free with no DRM. They want you to literally be able to put the game on a flash drive and give it to one of your friends. Which brings us to the final question that I will be specifically covering from the town hall, and that is the most controversial question asked yet, which is, will the game be released on Steam? This question is a bit of a loaded one. A lot of people want the game to be available on Steam, and there is no doubt a convenience factor where clicking one button and getting the game is obviously easier than having to seek it out somewhere else. But that would mean compromising on the DRM-free aspect of the game, as Steam does require some form of API or DRM. And in a recently updated FAQ post on the developer's Discord, Dean Hall elaborates on these concerns amongst many other very valid issues he has with Steam and its methods of distribution. For example, the fact that when you buy a game on Steam, you don't actually own that game. You own a license of the game, which can be taken away. And this has happened on rare occasion to some games. This underscores a larger issue with modern consumer media as a whole, where buying a digital copy of anything from basically anywhere today isn't buying a copy of that media that you own, but rather a license to view or play it. He also elaborates on some personal issues with having a game that he hopes those of all ages will enjoy listed next to adult-themed games that are plentiful on Steam, as well as games which expose younger audience to what he views as a form of gambling, like Counter-Strike Go. And while I personally find myself in the group that would prefer to see this game on Steam, I can respect where he is coming from and his life experiences that have led him to these decisions. Ultimately, we still don't have a firm answer as to whether or not this is going to happen, but at this point, it seems like it's not. Certainly not for the early builds of the game. Here's what he had to say specifically about this during the town hall meeting.
So there's this is a good one that's been asked quite a lot. I still need to update the FAQ. I've been really bad about doing that. Which was, you're going to release to Steam release at some point. So one of my big aims for this project, and this is definitely a personal one for me, but I think it's shared by a few team members. I really think that it is totally possible that someone could be inspired playing this game, and some of the first people to land on other worlds could actually be inspired by games like this. I know Felipe has been humbled many times by meeting people who are like, I don't know, create rockets or something, and I first played KSP. Is that a fair
It's
statement?
insane, dude. It's absolutely surreal. There's no what I say is there's no neural pathway in the human brain to process learning that somebody like that kind of thing is happening. It's like it's unfathomable in the literal sense. Like I can't process it properly. It's absolutely surreal.
So I'm also not happy with how we make and do games in general. You know, we have games like Stationeers, which we lose money on, and it's a very long conversation about it. But so I don't want to get into all the massive details. We might do a proper big write-up on it. But my belief is we should at least try to fund the game based purely off contributions, and then make the game completely free and distribute it via sort of safe torrent system or something. But certainly make it that basically people can just copy the game, so that if we go to schools and we say, hey, here's the game, they don't have to install Steam and get a whole bunch of hentai games shoved at them straight away. But the kids can also take that game home. I don't really like the idea of having an educational version, because I think that puts a barrier. I think that games are really good at inspiring people into something. And so if we can inspire a child, or even a big child like me, to get interested in space and science, that should continue at home. And it should happen regardless of anything else. I don't want to derail the conversation. I have a lot of issues with how Steam works in general. But yeah, that's the short summary.
Again, the full audio of this town hall will be linked at the end of this video as well as at the very bottom of this video's description. I'd recommend giving it a listen if you're interested, and if you want to stay up to date on the development of this game and several others, make sure you subscribe for more. And please give this video a huge like, it really helps my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.